In 2019, we began to build our dream.
But the journey started long before you were invited to watch.
We walked a path that spanned nearly 2 decades.
There were times of joy, pain, and everything in between.
Our lives have completely changed, and we're ready to tell you how it happened.
We're not holding back.
Our mistakes, regrets,
What we wish we could change, our best decisions.
and if we do it again, you'll hear it all.
Come back in time with us behind the camera and answer the question,
Is self-building worth it?
All right, guys, welcome back to Mr. Post Frame. This is our series called Is Self-Building Worth It? Today's video, we're gonna show some mistakes that really weren't all that costly, other than it just took me some time, a little bit of extra time to fix them, and things that I should have kind of known in advance that this was gonna be a problem. But anyway, I'll leave it to you to talk about our design and patron group.
Yes, so if you're looking for a Barndominium design, whether it be a custom plan or a stock design, back40buildings.com. We would love to work with you on that. We also, you can reach out to us via our website, mrpostframe.com. If you have other questions, we can connect you with other resources that we have, like finding a builder. We have a budget sheet, and we also have a DIY group on Patreon that we cover the ins and outs of contracting and building on your own.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into today's video. This is, we're gonna be kind of focusing on the garage area. So we built the house first. All the piers were poured at the same time. I had this idea with my storm shelter that I put 2 windows on the back side of the house, and I wanted it to be kind of a walkout. And so let's go ahead and just play it. I'd mentioned that I had some problems with all the rain we'd had before, and a mistake I made is when we were pouring these footings next to this storm shelter. So I excavated all around the storm shelter. So there was fill put in around the back. I put rock in around the storm shelter, which is gonna be under the garage. That hasn't settled. I compacted that. I compacted this dirt as I put it in the back side of this storm shelter. I'd put in, like, I don't know, 6-7 inches, compact it, put 6-7 inches in, compact it. But all the rain ran down through there, and despite my efforts, I did not get it compacted, and the retaining walls have settled up against the storm shelter. So you can see that's where the excavation stopped, right there, and then everything out that way was undisturbed soil. So I compacted this. All right, so if you're watching this video, the couple things that I had to deal with is, one, when I was pouring the piers for the garage, we got to the end, there was probably, I don't know, a half yard, 3/4 of a yard of concrete left, and I'm like, well, what should I do with it? I paid for it, I might as well put it somewhere. And the truck driver's like, hey, you should just pour it around the existing pier, it'll just make it super solid. And I really didn't think much about it. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But when I prepared this pad, and I prepared it, I had to build that area up in the backside of the garage. Now my piers were down below all that fill, but I did not get it compacted enough. And so what happened is I poured all that concrete around that pier, and then we got like 8 inches of rain. So all of that dirt settled a couple inches, and that concrete that I poured around my pier kind of extended out over that fill. And so when that fill settled, it tipped the pier, and it happened on 2 piers. So that was my first mistake. If you watch the video, you'll see how I fixed it. I literally just broke the concrete off of the pier, pulled the pier out, kind of redug it out, reset that whole pier almost like it was just a post. And then the second big mistake was this retaining wall. So you can see along my storm shelter, I had excavated all around that to dig that out and to pour the walls and everything. And then on the inside, I backfilled with rock because I was worried about settling. On the outside, I backfilled with dirt, tried to compact it. And I remember building the retaining walls and being like, you know, I probably should wait until this settles. But I was so excited and was in such a hurry to get this done that I went ahead and did it. And so, like, it really wasn't a shock to me when this happened, when we got 8 inches of rain in a week, and all that water went down along there and went down along where I had that fill. And you can see on that retaining wall, the retaining wall itself was built properly. It's just underneath had not been settled. So it was like a foot and a half out from the storm shelter is where it settled. And you can see that everything out past that was completely fine. So this really wasn't a shock to me that this happened. It's actually a blessing that we got all this rain and these things kind of were brought to light before I framed and did all that, because that would have created a lot more of a problem.
Yeah.
And the end result actually be better. I ended up getting 6-foot window wells, putting them in there, which helped me when I ran my water line and electric line. So at the end of the day, it all worked out great, but it did take me probably a couple extra days to fix all this. By the time, took me about not even an hour to rip the retaining wall out, and then I repurposed those retaining wall blocks around the house later. But
yeah, the only thing that made me nervous at that point was that it was probably $1,000 worth of block or something like that. Yeah. And like that was a pretty big
time,
that was a really big deal.
And so we sat on that block for a couple years.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
I just moved it around just moved it around a whole bunch.
We are just like,
It's kind of the story of my life. I would just move stuff around. I'm still moving stuff around.
I know. The amount of times that we have like emptied the garage to clean it only to have to empty it again. And
so, and as you can see here, I'm like banging on that huge piece of concrete that I poured around there. And I can remember thinking to myself, boy, that was dumb. That was real dumb.
Yeah. But you say, like, this reiterates what you say all the time, that when you get in a hurry,
yes,
think you can just make decisions that just aren't great and stuff. So that was a lot of the comments on this original video. People really appreciate, though, when you talk about things that go wrong, because that's a tough balance when you're sharing stuff online, is sharing your mistakes. And so you have to be really careful about it, because if you're a builder, you have your clients potentially watching and hearing about it.
The thing about it is if you're going to self-build, like Emily said, mistakes are going to happen when you get in a hurry. You're excited, you want to move forward, you have minimal amount of time, but there is sometimes you just have to slow it down and be like, listen, I cannot do this until this is properly settled. I mean, I could have easily taken a hose. Actually, I don't think I had water out there at that time, but no. I could have put a hose there and help that all settle. And I knew that retaining wall was going to be a problem. I didn't know that the piers were going to be a problem until after it happened. And then I saw what actually made that fail. It all worked out, but getting in a hurry is going to cause you problems. And then, just knowing when a mistake happens, take the time to fix it properly. You know what I'm saying? You can always, there's always the part of you that's like, I can just make this work and it'll be fine. But take the time and fix it properly. And that's why I'm not afraid to share my mistakes, because I'm human. I don't claim to be perfect. I try to be perfect, but it's impossible. Mm-hmm. But I am dedicated to making things right. And I think that's how you can be successful self-building is, when a mistake happens, it's not if, it's when it happens, take the time to fix it properly. And by watching these things, you can avoid a lot of the mistakes that I made, just in general, you know what I mean?
Right. And it ended up working out.
Yeah, it ended up working out. That pier I had to dig down just a little bit more, so that pier ended up being a little bit lower than the others, but I just made up for that height difference with my column. That's a great thing about the piers and all that. And as you can see, I lifted that whole pier out with the bracket. I mean, that bracket isn't coming out of there. Everybody's like, oh, that's just going to pull right out. Yeah, so these piers, I mean, when they're in the ground, everybody seems to think that they're just gonna, just get sucked right out of the ground. And Mother Nature is nothing to mess with. But what's gonna fail is the structure. The structure is gonna fail far before those piers and all that comes apart or comes out of the ground. If you ever look at the aftermath of a tornado, the structure's always gone and the foundation's always there, still there. Because, you know, that wind isn't gonna be a perfect, like in order for that to pick that up. I mean, in our house and garage, there's probably 300,000 or 400,000 pounds of concrete that sit over the top of those piers. So there's like, it's literally, I'm not gonna say it's impossible because I don't wanna test God, but like, it's almost next to impossible for that to ever be an issue. And as if,
It's not as fragile of a situation as some people want you to believe.
yeah, and so if you take that pier individually, and you put a column on it, like, yeah, you could probably put you know, maybe you could pull it over, but if once all of those are locked together, that's extremely strong. And we've put in piers before just as tie downs for our buildings, and it is extremely, extremely difficult to get those piers out of the ground, even with, you know, a skid steer or a telehandler. You hook onto those piers and try to pull them up out of the ground, and it is almost next to impossible. You have to kind of dig around them to get them loose, to get them to pull out. And those brackets, they don't, you know, those rebar hold in there really well. So.
Yeah. Yes, which these brackets, the manufacturer has engineering reports on them. That's something that we include with our.
Yeah, they're all ICC rated. They're over the uplift, shear, all of that is required by the building code. They exceed all of those. All of the brackets do, whether they're the dry set or the wet set. Obviously, I think the wet sets are stronger because you have the rebar going down there, but they've all been proven to meet the requirements. So, you know, we've used plenty of them in both ways, and they work well. Another thing I wish I would have done is, if you know, right here when you're looking at the house, I wish I would have wrapped that wall. Like, that's my standard practice now. I would build the house part, I would wrap it all, then I would attach my next truss, which it really isn't a big deal. It makes for a little bit cleaner install with your house wrap and whatnot, where those two buildings adjoin. You're essentially building two buildings here. If you have like a garage, I want to point this out. If you're looking across, our garage is 56 feet across, and we have 4 garage doors. And so what I like to do when I have a sidewall with a whole bunch of doors is I like to run continuous headers across the whole way, just to give that wall a little bit of extra strength. It just really ties that all together, gives it some extra shear and whatnot.
Yeah, so can you, like for post frame, that sidewall is that's the wall that
Carries the trusses.
Yeah, that you want to be.
Your shear
most
comes
powerful.
typically from, like, your shear strength comes a lot from your end walls. But when you don't have, when I'm talking about this side of this garage, there's not a lot of space there with shear on it, like as far as the metal. So that's why I like to run continuous headers, is to kind of tie all that together.
Yeah.
And LVLs are obviously going to be stronger. You do have to notch the LVLs a 1/4 inch into your columns if you're going to use those, so they sit even with your 2x, because your 2x material, like girts, are 1.5 inches. LVLs are 1 3/4 inches, so you got to set them in a 1/4 inch. So I just take a planer and plane it in a 1/4 inch until they're flush. So I wonder what day this was.
September 16th.
16th. I started framing on August 16th. So that's one man. Like, I mean, that's pretty good. I had done a lot in a month. That's crazy. But another thing to mention about this is I watched myself tear these retaining walls down. I did it really fast. If you've seen that video, it took me like 5 seconds. But when you make a mistake, instead of like humming and kind of complaining about it, you just got to accept the fact that you made a mistake and be like, I got to get this fixed, and then get after it.
Right.
Because there's that part of you that's just, you want to kind of stay in that state of this sucks, and it's like, that's not where you want to stay. You want to decide, hey, I made a mistake, how do I got to fix it? And then at the end, it feels really good once it's, you know, everything's back to the way it should be. And this actually ended up working out a lot better
Oh yeah.
because of like what we've done out back. I ended up putting a little pad out the back door, the kitchen back there. It was a lot easier running my water line and electrical line because I brought them around the back side of the house. So at the end of the day, it would have worked either way. I think this would have been cool, but it worked out fine, and I'm super happy with the way it turned out. And we've been here for 5 years, and like there's no signs of settling or problems at all with those piers that I fixed. And they didn't sink, they just tipped from the weight of that concrete around them. So there really wasn't an issue with like the bottom of the footing.
Yeah. So that's it. We make mistakes.
Does that feel good to say that? You said we. So yeah, you know, if you wouldn't have told that truck driver to go ahead and pour that concrete around there, I wouldn't have had to deal with that.
Right.
It's your fault.
It is. It is.
Were you telling Emily about all these mistakes? Like, did she know what was going on?
Yeah, I always tell her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I feel like you've always been. I mean, in your head, maybe you're like, oh, I don't feel like you've ever been like, oh man, why'd you do that? Or.
Right.
I mean, maybe.
No, I mean, I guess at first, like at least for a while, I wouldn't question anything because I literally didn't know how anything worked.
Sure.
So maybe I would question things more now because I have a little bit more knowledge, but I mean, it's inevitable. Like there's a lot of things going on, like when you're building, and especially, you know, the self-builders, it's like your internet browser, you've opened up 500 tabs and you're trying to figure out which ones you need to go to next, but they're all important. Like they're all things you have to carry with you. And so we talk a lot about that in general, just that mental load. And so that's where some of the mistakes can come from, is just having all of those things running around your mind. So when you talked about just if you make a mistake and you need to fix something, just go ahead and fix it. And I would second that, because that's a tab that's like,
You can close it out.
yeah, it's interrupting everything. And if you can close that one down, then you can like push that out and move forward, versus like trying to move forward and then know that like 2 months from now you have to come back and fix something.
Yeah, I mean, we have some open tabs with some builds right now, and it's just like, if we could just close those, it would just clear up so much brain space. And
Yes.
and that mental load it's a different type of exhaustion than physical exhaustion.
Yes. So just be aware of that. If this is the path that you're taking, that's very normal to feel like there's just a lot going on in your head, which is why we're always trying to come up with new resources to help people navigate it and also kind of get it out of your head. You know, like our budget worksheet was born from that, of just having somewhere where you can put it all, so you don't have to remember it, because all you have to do is remember that you have that sheet.
Sure.
Like that's the one thing, versus remembering 35 things. You know, so
Yeah.
that's that.
Justin, any other things on that one?
No, I was going to ask if you already answered it, if you would have liked it better the way you were doing it versus.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have been happy either way, you know what I mean? My vision with that whole space is it was going to be a 2-story man cave, which is, you know, that's changed now that our business has gone where it's gone. And it probably, who knows, it might change again before we actually finish that space.
Yeah, right now it serves as your hunting closet is the storm shelter, and then the room above it is like our storage, like holiday decor and all that kind of stuff. But we'll get it finished out, and it'll probably change purposes a couple of times.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool though.
Yep. I think that's it.
All right, guys, so that's going to be a wrap on this video. If you want to see the full video, check it out. You can see the mistakes real time.
Got too many open tabs?
I got a lot of open tabs.
So we're going to go ahead and go and work on that. But we appreciate you watching, following along with this.
I just came up with a new series.
What?
Is being a custom home builder worth it?
Don't ask us that question.
As always, guys, we appreciate you. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, and we will catch you on the next video.